What if you met a street peddler who had everything you didn't know you needed?
Wander with us. I'm Bethany,
I'm still Connor.
and we're talking about the Twilight Zone,
We certainly are.
episode 12.
What you need.
Yeah.
Aired December 25th, a Christmas episode.
Ooh.
How delightfully inappropriate.
Oh, well, no, I would argue it is appropriate. They're all in wintry garb, the streets are slippery.
There's a street peddler hawking garbage and fortunes.
Yeah.
Fuck,
Indoors.
if that's not Christmas, I don't know what is.
Indoors for most of it.
Well, yeah, except for all of the important bits.
All right, who
But-
directed this?
Aired December 25th, 1959. It was directed by Alvin Ganzer.
Okay, that's a new one.
That is, I think, a new one,
I don't recognize the name.
based on a short story by Henry Cutter. Teleplay was done by the Brain Daddy. No shocker there. We got a reoccurring cinematography director in one George T. Clemens. I was about to say he's back, but I don't think he ever left.
He never left. He's always bringing it home.
He's always there. And then original music in this one by Van Cleve, who has a rap sheet a mile long in the music world, but
That's an awesome name.
Van Cleve, it's
dig
not
it.
bad.
I
It's
dig
not
it.
a bad name at all.
So Serling wrote...
Awesome soundtrack on this one, by the way.
Yeah,
Absolutely fantastic. Well done soundtrack.
very good music. And I think more music
A lot more than
the
typical.
average episode.
Yeah.
So Serling wrote the teleplay for this, but you said it was based on a short story?
Yes, it was based on a short story by Henry Cutter. I found virtually no information on the short story other than what we get is a street peddler who seemingly has the ability to see short glimpses into the future, whereas the short story, the peddler was a machine. It was a
Interesting.
fortune-telling machine in the original short story, and apparently Rod
Is it like one of those you put the quarter in, pull the handle,
it
and
didn't have
tells
that much
you-
information. It just stated that it was that in the original short story it was a machine that could tell the future, and that Brain Daddy decided to
Make it a person?
remove the sci-fi bit of that and just give the magical power to a street peddler, because God, Rod loves street peddlers.
Yes, he does. And I like that because it brings a certain level of humanity to this episode that I feel like it wouldn't have the same effect if it were a machine.
No, we'd be dealing with the slot machine episode, which we'll get to, but we'll get to that and you'll see why I hate it so much, but that's a different episode for a different time. We are talking about episode 12, What You Need.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, we got the good old-fashioned standard cast with some new original music.
How many people are credited as cast in this one?
A metric shitload.
Yeah.
If we're including the sound design,
Not the
set
production
decoration,
crew.
all that.
Just the cast.
Just the cast, we've got 14 listed,
Wow.
which I don't think it's the largest cast so far.
Isn't the standard between like 12 and 14? It's like 12 and 13 something.
It's getting there now. Obviously, in the first couple of episodes, we were dealing with casts of 2 and 3.
Yeah.
That seems to be increasing. I don't know if that's due to budget increases or if that's just due to requirement for the stories that are being told. But either way, it's nice. Although I should clarify that while we have 14 credited cast member, there were significantly less credited in the original credits for the show.
Okay. So
A
when
whole
it
lot
aired.
of uncredited folks in this one when it aired,
Okay.
including Rod. Wasn't
He's often not.
yeah,
credited.
very rarely is he credited for anything outside of being the host.
So this episode, What You Need, opens on a downtown 1950s street scene. There's jazz music playing in the background.
Oh, it's everything you want from a 1950s American street corner.
It's nighttime. The lights are all, the neon signs are all lit up. And
Yep, we can see that Smitty's is open, whatever the hell that is.
Smithies, and then it shows a man walking into a bar, which the shot of the front of the bar, it took me a couple of times. I had to like rewind it and play again. The name of the bar is the Del Rio.
The Del Rio.
It's really quick. It's just a flash at the top of the screen, and that's it.
See here, I got egg on my face because I thought that sign said something about the deli.
No.
You can shake your head at me all you want. The lip ring is going to touch my teeth. I can't help that. It always does.
I mean, you don't.
I'll fix that in
You
post.
don't have to play with it.
I'm literally not playing with it. I'm talking.
Were. Can't.
I'll weave that in.
So.
In case you're wondering why it sounds different, here, I think one episode ago, we got ourselves some new mics. We upgraded the microphone situation. And then I decided I was tired of dealing with two microphones. So we're trying a single mic setup. Let us know what you think.
It's very cozy.
It's fairly cozy. We actually get to talk to each other now, which is nice. We're not
face to
facing
face.
different directions while we do this. It's new and I don't like it.
It'll take some getting used to. So into the Del Rio, into the bar.
Yes, sorry, that egg on my face. I thought that sign said deli.
No,
I thought it was a deli sign. I was very confused why you kept looking at the deli sign.
no, it was a very quick flash. The Del Rio. That's all the information we have. And then you go indoors. And it's fairly populated. It's a small building.
We get a introduction narration by
his
Rod
Opening narration.
prior to all this happening.
Did you happen to catch?
No. No, I had production notes on this one.
Yeah.
I mean,
Also,
word for word isn't important. It's
tweet
just,
at us and let us know what you think about this switching back and forth between production notes and the play-by-play.
Don't tweet us. I don't care.
I'm curious. I want to know.
Fine,
Do
tweet
me
at
the
her.
favor and do that. It's it's underscore Bethany at Twitter. Anywho, that was so bad. Gotta get used to the Twitter. So we see a downcast main character who we come to know as Fred Bernard.
Renard.
Renard? With an R?
R-E-N. Renard.
I told you I was having trouble understanding the pronunciation of his name when it was
Yeah, it was a surprisingly mumbled
Very-
narration
every time.
in the opening. I just don't usually have trouble understanding. Well, sometimes the names are a little hard to grab
Yeah.
when Rod's kind of blowing through the narration.
I
But
just
it's
I couldn't
Fred
get
Renard.
it. Renard. Okay. I heard Bernard.
It's all good. I have cast notes in front of me. I'm cheating.
So Fred Renard is nursing a half-finished drink. His body language is super tight. Like, you could just tell he's an unhappy individual before he even opens
very
his mouth.
pulled in on himself, despite being a fairly
Broad-shouldered individual.
he's a big presence when you first see him.
So then he's just kind of sitting there, and then the bartender comes up to him. And this bartender is quite possibly the most talkative bartender in the history of bartending.
And he's a jerk.
He's just
We'll
loud.
get to that part later.
We'll get to
He
him,
hasn't
but
been a jerk yet, but
He's very loud and very... I found him very obnoxious. So he
Agreed.
comes over and
I
he
agree
asks
entirely.
Fred if he wants another drink or how he's doing. Can't remember exactly. And
asks him if he's ready for another one.
Yeah.
And Fred's response is, "I'm good."
yeah, and which uncommon phraseology there. I don't.
If he actually said "I'm good," I will agree. I don't remember if that's.
It
if
could
those
be your
were his
paraphrase. I'll
words.
run with it anyway.
I'm usually paraphrasing.
So he says, "I'm good. You've been good for an hour. Well, we serve alcohol here."
We don't
Like,
just rent space.
yeah. So
And then the greatest insult of the series
Yeah.
occurs from Mr. Fred Renard in "How would you like to take a flying leap at the moon?"
yeah.
What? Ermagerd, I'm so using that.
It was a verbal backhand in
And
the
it-
classiest way possible.
Like, I've heard, like, take a long walk off a short pier. Like, that one's been used to death. But how would you like to take a flying leap at the moon? That's beautiful. It means nothing.
The imagery is great. Yeah.
Sorry,
so,
I'll stop interrupting you.
No, it's fine.
Until
so after
I interrupt you again.
are you quite done?
Of course I am.
Uh,
Or
You know,
Go- yeah.
this is how this works,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Go for it.
So we see this interaction between them, and Serling gives a fantastical introduction.
You an English major?
I can use that word.
Okay.
That is my word. It's fine. Not literally fantastical. I found it. Gives this great introduction to Fred, or about Fred. And I didn't write it down.
You should have done that.
I worked today. I'm super sleepy right now. So anyway, he gives this great introduction talking about how Fred is just a sour man. How he's friendless, you know, and he just, like, not essentially coming from the aspect of this guy's been given the short end of the stick his entire life, but these are the choices that he has made to bring him to this place of just being this very dour, bitter person.
May I? You're looking at Mr. Fred Renard, who carries on his shoulder a chip the size of the national debt. This is a sour man, a friendless man, a lonely man, a grasping, compulsive, nervous man. This is a man who has lived 36 undistinguished, meaningless, pointless, failure-laden years, and who is at this moment looking for an escape, any way, anything, anybody to get him out of the rut. And this little old man is just what Mr. Renard is waiting for.
He says it so perfectly. Like, just, it's written
Oh,
so...
well, fuck you, I guess. My reading was just shit.
See, you read it...
Rod Serling did it perfect. You're garbage. Go home.
You're already home. You read it very
Right.
well. Okay?
Don't patronize me.
No.
Move on.
You read it very well. It was just written beautifully.
Don't patronize me. Move on.
If there were ever a way to encapsulate a character, he did it very well.
He did it remarkably in that moment with the writing and his delivery, and I will admit his delivery is better than mine, and that's okay. I'm not the brain daddy.
That's fine. So then a little elderly peddler man enters, and he's wearing his fedora and his scarf, and I just think he's adorable, and it's great.
He is, because I forgot, I'm going to jump on this before it's too late to do it.
Go for it.
Mr. Fred Renard is played by a Steve Cochran, who has possibly the most interesting story of the cast of this episode.
I like their stories. Go on.
First of all, he was born Robert Cochran. I'm not sure where he got Steve, but, you know, to each their own.
The Hollywood name change, perhaps?
I guess. But usually it's like they change it from something that's like unpronounceable to like Bob. They don't usually go from like Robert to Steve. Like he definitely could have been Rob Cochran. I don't know why I didn't go with Rob. Whatever.
Maybe it
Not
wasn't a thing of the times.
Not my choice. Point being, he had a fairly interesting career that ended when in 1965 he went for a trip on his yacht looking for a location to shoot on for the production company he had opened at the time.
Oh, so he was running the company.
He had his own production company at the time, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that. So
But he was headed to Guatemala
looking for a filming
location and died of a lung infection while he was at sea. Like, his death location is listed as Pacific Ocean.
Wow. Does it say if he was, like, alone? Was this like a...
It doesn't say, although it's unlikely that he was alone, since it specifies that he started this voyage to find shooting locations in Guatemala on his personal yacht. So it's unlikely that he was alone. But, I mean, he was... I don't know that his wife was there. I believe they had filed for divorce and were in that process when he died. But yeah, died at 48. He's
young.
The youngest death in the cast by far. And then we get to Pedot. That T was rough.
Yeah.
Who is the little old man who enters the bar, played by Ernest Truex.
Yeah.
I hope I'm pronouncing his name properly. I apologize to any Truexes out there if it's wrong. This man, his filmography was vast.
He was super... I mean, he was obviously old at the time of filming because it wasn't makeup that made him look old.
He was certainly gentleman. Late 60s, 70s, something to that effect when he was filming. I mean, he was born in 1889 and died in 73.
All of the characters in this upcoming scene that I'm going to talk about lovingly refer to him as Pop.
Yeah, except for
Fred.
the young lady, I believe.
Yeah, she doesn't either, because their interaction's very brief.
Yeah.
But, like, Lefty calls him Pop.
Lefty does call him Pop, although I think Lefty's the only one that calls him Pop in this scene. I know Fred calls him Pop and Old Man and
Yeah.
all kinds of...
It just... I like it that he was given a nickname.
Sure.
But how many films does he have to his credit? I'm curious.
Ernest Truex, he had a fairly impressive 130 some odd acting credits.
So we're talking like almost a lifelong career here?
Oh, it's pretty close. As far as careers go, he's as far as I can tell, he wasn't active for the last 10 years of his life or so, but
Oh, sure. We all need a break every now and again.
for sure. But he also had several soundtracks to his credit, as well as some writing and
Do you see if he
other
did any
things.
silent films? Because wasn't he born in like 1889?
He was born in '89, yeah.
So I wonder if he
and-
was also one of the old ones that that moved from silent film era to the more modern films.
So his earliest acting credit was a movie called Caprice, which was released in 1913.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, looking at the screen clips, or the screenshots, I'd say this is a silent film if I've ever seen one, but I don't know anything about it.
Sure.
It certainly has the god awful silent film quality look about it.
So it's safe to assume that he may or may not have been in silent film era and then moved on from in the entirety of his acting career.
In his
started
career,
from
if I had to
moved
guess, yeah, I mean, with his earliest credit being 1913, there's a pretty good chance that his first few were probably silent. And, I don't know.
I like the
probably
history,
fairly impressive to have moved into the world of
sound and color.
sound and color in his lifetime.
I like the history behind these actors. I spent, when I do the production notes, I spend too much time on it, really, getting all kinds of useless information just because I find it fascinating. These
Agreed,
people
entirely.
that have had these, like, especially the ones with like lifelong careers, have seen so many different eras and like real stamps, time
For sure.
stamps of film.
And I feel like that's one of the things that if we move on at some point and do like the newest season of the Twilight Zone or move on to something else at some point, like I'm just gonna be less impressed.
Because it's too modern.
Yeah. So this is Tom Cruise. He's best known for all the 30 movies you've seen him in the last 2 years, and his front tooth. I don't think it's going to be as entertaining to do the research on stuff like that. But
And this is how much CGI time went into this episode.
right. So this was the budget for the cast. This was the
Whereas-
budget of 12 times that size for the CGI. Welcome to the Marvel Universe.
When you look at this time period of filming, you can really appreciate the value of the work that was put into it. Everything with like the editing and how things were done to make a certain shot happen. Kind of
Well,
impressive.
I could argue that it's every bit as impressive now. The only difference being not the only difference. The biggest difference in my opinion being the move to digital media
Technology.
of sorts, like the technological advancement. Because I mean, you can't. I don't know enough about the modern movie industry to say this for certain.
Sure.
But my guess is that nowadays you're not editing by cutting reels together.
Mm-hmm.
Like no part of me thinks that if, for example, you want to modify a shot a little bit, you have to cut that set. There's an excellent example
Yeah.
in this.
We'll get to it. I didn't want to bring it up yet.
Well, I mean, we've already passed it.
Come back. No, we haven't.
Yeah, we have.
Oh, have we?
We
have
literally,
not.
you stopped
When he
right,
walked in.
right where this is about to happen.
Okay.
So I'm
Then
not going to be
go-
giving anything away
Then
here.
go for it. Go for it.
It's an excellent example. As
Describe
in the
this
next scene, the old man walks into this bar. The camera cuts over to Mr. Fred
Bernard.
Renard, thank you. And we see him, excuse me, we see him looking at the old man who has just walked into the bar. He then slowly turns his head away from him to look down at the bar.
Mm-hmm.
If you look close, you'll notice that's not how it was shot, as the cigarette smoke in the scene is traveling back down to his lit cigarette. So in the original shot, he was looking at the bar and then glanced up at the old man.
Mm-hmm.
somebody at some point decided it would be better if he was looking at the old man
And
and
then
then
looked
turned his
down.
head away from him. And I happen to agree. I think that had a better
Effect.
aesthetic feel to it.
Yeah.
But I don't reckon nowadays if you wanted to make that change, you would have to cut a chunk of film and
Flip it.
to roll it backwards or however they did it. Like
Yeah.
I can't imagine anybody is slicing film together
Yeah.
in the editing process now.
Well,
If I'm wrong, feel free to tell me.
It's mostly shot on digital anyway, right? Digital
See, that's
cameras.
just it. I don't know.
They don't have film reels anymore?
I don't know. I imagine there is still film being used.
Let us know if you know.
I say if you're like in class taking like cinematography or some crap, like hit us up, WWUcast at WWUcast on Twitter, because I'm really interested now, but I'm also too lazy to do the research. Moving on.
All right. And I mean, if you're listening to this, chances are you're probably procrastinating and avoiding something. So
Whoa.
you might have the time, maybe.
Oi,
I know
let's not
that's-
alienate our entire fan.
I'm just saying that. To the one out there
Hi, Mom.
who was like me when I was in school and would find things to listen to specifically, so I didn't have to write that term paper. You should hit us up. Anyway, all
This
right.
mic is way too hot.
Yeah.
Shouldn't
So because
you
you
shouldn't hear
can't-
my fingertips tapping the tabletop.
Because you guys can't see this, he's sitting opposite the table of me, and on the other side of the table, his hand is tapping. And you can hear that.
I mean, it's a good mic. Like, I'll admit, it's a good mic. It's
Yeah.
it's good stuff. But
Hey, we have an episode
it's
to
so
talk about.
hot.
So
Right, we're doing a thing.
I'm gonna move
Where were
on.
we at?
We were so
Teach me about Twilight.
terrible series. The Twilight Zone is what we can talk about.
Teach me about that too.
Okay.
At what point in this movie do we get to see Ernest Truex sparkle in the sun?
He's not. It's all at night, as far as I tell. I think the entirety of this episode was shot at,
Yeah, we don't see any daylight in this one.
which is interesting because all of the lighting changes that happen are,
There are less dramatic lighting changes in this one, but they're used well.
yeah, it's either indoors or on a street scene. And it kind of cuts back and forth between the two. So anywho, little elderly man, Mr. What was his name? The character's name?
No, Pedot.
Pedot. Mr. Pedot walks in, and we see that interaction with Fred and looking at the door when he comes in and all that. So it kind of focuses on him. And I don't remember if Serling actually did, like, he kind of didn't focus on Mr. Pedot in his narration. It was all mostly on Fred. And then said this peddler man is like has exactly what he needs or something along those lines. So anyway, we don't know much about him other than he is a street peddler. He comes in, he sets his stuff down.
It's clear that he's important, though.
Yeah,
Just based on how they shot him. It was well done.
and how he was dressed.
I meant he's important to the story.
Oh,
The way they shot it, it was as soon as he walked in the bar, you could tell he was going to be an essential character.
Yeah.
It was well done.
So he walks over, and it's what I'm calling a film noir moment. Because the first interaction that we see between Pedot and another actor in this episode is he walks over to a woman, and do you have her name?
Yeah, well, the actress's name is Arlene Martel.
Was she credited?
She was credited as Girl in Bar.
Classy.
And then they had a subtitle name for her, but
Was she perhaps the cleaning fluid?
no, she actually, her character had a name.
But it was never mentioned.
It wasn't mentioned in the show, and she's credited here as Girl in Bar.
So Mr. Pedot walks over to Girl in Bar. Anything for you, miss? And she has a cigarette in her hand, and she's just kind of sitting at the bar, or sitting at her booth, rather, by herself, being kind of forlorn. And she's, I don't know, maybe some matches. And so he sets his little thing, like bounces his briefcase that he has all of his wares in on the edge of the table. And then he looks at her, and he makes eye contact. And they did a cool thing with the sound. Every time he made eye contact with a character, it was like a little budding sound, except that not like that. But they did an interesting sound cue.
The sound cue makes it clear that something is happening.
Yes.
It's a moment of intensity within an otherwise fairly calm soundtrack. It's well done.
Right. So, moment of intense eye contact happens, and he goes, no, I have what you need. And he pulls out this little bottle of cleaning fluid. That's what he described it as. Hands her this little bottle, which looks like one of the little mini bar bottles of vodka.
Mm-hmm.
And he hands it to her. He's, well, what's this? Cleaning fluid. I guarantee you it'll remove any stain of any kind. Cleaning fluid. And so she takes it and just kind of smiles at him, and then, like, that was weird. And I could have a lot to say by the fact that this dude gives first female character we see a bottle of cleaning fluid. I won't go there. So,
that's what she needed.
Gives her the cleaning fluid. And
look, he didn't say, here's some cleaning fluid and what you need is to take off your shoes and get in the kitchen. He just said, you need this.
Right, that's fine.
Which she does.
To that, I'm getting there.
I'm just saying, man, you're about to go off on like a women's liberation rant right now, and I don't want to have to fight you.
I said I wasn't going to go there.
If you flip this table on me, I will defend myself.
So I'm not going to go there, right? So he hands her the cleaning fluid, and he moves on, and he wanders over to a character called Lefty. Who's that guy?
Lefty. So Lefty is played by Reed Morgan, who is best known as a dealer on Maverick and a cop in Back to the Future.
Okay.
I mean, his acting credits are substantial. He's got like 170 something acting credits to his name,
Mm-hmm.
but of them,
There's not many that are notable.
like, played the sheriff in Lassie in 1990.
I don't know.
Anybody
any of
remember the
those.
fucking sheriff from Lassie? He was on Dallas.
To be fair, the only one of those that you've said that I've recognized is Back to the
Well, I mean, you don't recognize Lassie. All right, moving on. He is credited in a metric ton, including the A-Team and Murder, She Wrote, obviously Back to the Future as cop. But it's a lot of those roles, a lot of lieutenants and cops and dealers and reporter unnamed roles.
Mm-hmm.
But he did a shitload of them.
Just getting his face out there.
Yeah, I don't know if that ever paid off for him.
It's unfortunate.
I mean, he was Maverick. Murder, She Wrote. That's.
I know them in name only, but I mean, at least I know the names.
Yeah, I don't know.
So, Lefty, as we come to find out, was he a major league baseball player? Or did they specify he was just a baseball player?
They just specified that he was a pitcher for. I think they said the Cubs.
Maybe.
I don't remember. He threw a baseball real fast.
Yeah,
with his left hand.
With his left hand, and then his left arm. The bartender described it as his left arm went sour.
Which, I mean, that's a real polite way to be like, he sucks at his job now.
Yeah.
Like, the bartender is about to be a real asshole in this next scene, but at the same time, he starts off with, like, Lefty here used to be an adventurer till he took an arrow to the knee. Like, that's a super polite way to be like, he just sucks at what he does.
Yeah, and so he no longer does it. So Lefty is the first character to directly address Hadot in that he calls him Pop.
He does.
Hey, Pop, what you got? Or
What you got?
yeah, something like that. And so he kind of, again, sets his wares down, and then the bartender starts talking.
Good old William Edmondson, the bartender. I mean.
Oh, okay.
There's not a lot to say on his.
So he got
acting
this
career.
role and then took full advantage of it by talking through.
Well, I mean,
most of it.
he had like 18, 20 acting credits to his name, something like that.
So he was really making the most of every bit of screen time.
I'm guessing he was making the most of every chunk of 15 minutes he got.
Yeah, that's fairly obvious because he talks the entire time.
I mean,
So-
there's a pretty good chance that everything he said was written for him to say. I doubt he was ad-libbing any of that.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe the crew was being nice, just like, this dude doesn't ever get any acting parts. Let's give him 4 minutes of talking shit about Lefty, but I doubt it.
And one thing that I have learned, I think, in this particular episode, is that I am starting to judge the actors and the actresses
Based on their roles.
characters, their
Yeah.
roles. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
bad.
it's getting bad.
It's bad. So anywho,
You want to tirade about old Reed Morgan or not Reed Morgan? Oh God, Steve Cochran.
yeah, the guy who plays
Tirade
Fred
about
Renard.
Steve.
I did, and we'll get to that. But yeah. So
To be fair, he plays a very hateable character.
He
It's
does.
well done.
yeah, I will give him that good acting credit. But so Lefty talks to Pop a little bit, Mr. Pedot, and says, "Well, what do you need? What do you need?" And
All kinds of things. Shoelaces, matches.
says, "Well, I need a new left arm." And he goes, and then so after he says that, the bartender just kind of pops in and tells him, like, informs Mr. Pedot that, well, Lefty here is here 7 nights a week and all this, and he needs a new baseball career so he can afford another bottle.
So looking
like
for a baseball career looking for a new baseball career at the bottom of a bottle.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah. So upon hearing this, Mr. Pedot goes, "Well, what do you need?" But the way he said it was almost like he was pleading with him, like, "Tell me, I want to help you." And
Don't have eye contact.
then he made eye contact, and then the
Intense cued music.
sound happened, and he pulls out these bus tickets. Lefty kind of looks at it and takes them and goes, "Scranton, Pennsylvania. What's in Scranton, Pennsylvania?" And Mr. Pedot looks at him and goes, "One never knows." And just kind of like, if I feel like if they would have written in like a wink there, it might have been over the top, but it made the point. So it was the tone of his voice that was like him winking at
I
him.
know some shit you don't know.
Essentially, yes. But one thing I do like is that when Lefty tells him that he needs a new left arm, he goes, "Well, what about a thing instead of baseball?" Like trying to get him to expand. What does your life look like beyond your baseball
there are
career?
other options.
Other things instead. And he goes, "Well, what else is there other than baseball?" And he goes, "I have what you need." They make the eye contact, he hands them the bus tickets. And then the phone rings. The phone booth. Another phone booth ringing.
Damn phone booth in every building.
Another call received from phone booth, which still catches me off guard every time. And so, dude calls out from the phone booth, says, "Lefty, phone's for you." Lefty goes over, picks up the phone, and it kind of pans over to Fred Renard, and you're seeing him just kind of brooding. He's kind of watching this whole thing play out, and he's just very broody. And so, Lefty comes back to the bar, and he sits down. The bartender goes, "So what, your horse come in?" And he goes, "Well, I just got a call from my old manager in Scranton, Pennsylvania. He's been looking for me for 3 weeks. He offered me a job in Scranton." And he looks at the bus tickets. There's this aha moment. And then he's talking to the bartender. And he goes, "Well, I need to, like, clean up. I'd hate to go to a job interview like this. And there's a stain on his jacket. What do you know? Lady with the cleaning fluid comes over and says, 'Hey, excuse me, sir. I can help you with this.' And they have this thing." So Mr. Pedot becomes a matchmaker, and that happens. And it's very interesting to see how much darker Fred Renard's demeanor becomes throughout the entirety of the scene, because he's just watching these people get like things that they need, and he's just sitting there. And so the next shot that we see is Mr. Pedot outside, and he's, I'm assuming he's setting up his briefcase and getting ready to talk to more people. But then, like, he looks off camera like he can sense that Fred is behind him, and he does this like 2 or 3 times throughout this episode, where, like, before he shows up, like, before we see him, he can sense it, and really does a really good job of conveying that. And but real quick, when they're back in the bar, when she goes over to help him get the stain out, goes, "Oh, well, this man over here gave me," and they look up and he's gone. He just, like, beat a dude out. And then that's when we see him on the street, and that's when Fred comes up behind him.
See, the implication there is that he's actually trying to get away from Fred, because the entire time he's in the bar, he's kind of side-eyeing Fred and looking very uncomfortable every time he looks at Fred.
Yeah. Like,
Clearly
he doesn't want
nothing to do with Renard.
Doesn't want to maintain eye contact. So Fred follows him outside, and he becomes a little bit violent, like, but
Certainly abrasive.
grabs him by the collar and is insistent that he tells him what he needs. And there's this really nice shot where you see Paddock go into like a defensive stance because he looks over and like they make eye contact, and while they're making eye contact he reaches into his briefcase that he had set up and grabs some scissors.
Looks like he's about to stick
And
this
the
guy
way
in
he's
the
holding
neck.
the scissors is like so
good.
Fred has Paddock by the scarf and is just kind of holding him, and you can just see Paddock's hand holding the scissors, and that was just a great, like, it would have made a great still frame, still image.
Yeah, would've.
So, scissors, what is this, a gag? And so he takes them, and the next thing we see is Fred goes into a hotel and straight up demands his key. Like, doesn't ask for
He
it.
smacks the guy who's working there, like smacks him on the arm. Like, hey, key.
Yeah. So he gets his key.
Just a prick.
He's a garbage human. Garbage. So he gets his key and he goes into the elevator. And he's wearing a scarf this entire time, which I didn't actually notice until he was in the elevator. But the scarf is like double wrapped. So it's over his shoulder, but it's double, like it's one end is looped over the other. And
hanging off his back.
Yeah, which is not an efficient way to wear a scarf. So his scarf ends up getting caught in the elevator. And as it's moving, he gets kind of pulled backwards and he's like grasping at his throat trying to get the scarf unwound. He can't get it unwound, and then scissors.
Trying to hit the button on the elevator, but
And
he
it's
can't
not
reach
happening. So he grabs the scissors, he cuts himself free, and he's sitting there kind of catching his breath, and he's looking at the scissors like, what I need, huh? And then the very next scene is Fred sitting in a darkened apartment or a darkened room. We don't know, it's an apartment at that point. And the lighting, they use the lighting to like flash, like a flicker. So you can tell there's somebody in the room, but you can't really see the scene. And so Mr. Paddock comes into his apartment and he flicks on the light, and Fred's just sitting in a chair.
Yeah, we don't get any context for how Fred found his way into Paddock's apartment. Like, he just...
Because he went from hotel to being in his apartment. Like,
yeah,
I don't know if he could have followed him or...
Yeah, it feels like
Or maybe it wasn't a hotel, maybe it was an apartment building.
I mean,
I
yeah,
know
maybe.
it's a stretch, but
I don't know.
you don't typically have your keys at the front desk.
Well, we don't. Don't know that wasn't a thing at some point.
I don't know how things work.
Certainly don't know how apartments in Guadalupe, who the hell cares, 1950s worked.
Right. So again, as we've seen in previous episodes, random dude shows up in dude's apartment, and Mr. Paddock is super, like, chill with it. Like, I mean,
I disagree entirely.
Oh, he's caught off guard, for sure. He's frightened, because he drops his suitcase and everything spills out on the ground. But he, like, he doesn't have the reaction that you or I would have if we came home from work and somebody was just chilling on our couch, like...
Well, no, but neither of us are 70-year-old men who have genuine reason to fear this person that we've just found in our apartment. Like,
so what was your read on how he handled that situation?
That was a scared old man.
That and nothing more?
Yeah, that was an old man that was scared.
Well, you're already here, so I'm going to be cautious.
Yeah,
I'm going to tread carefully.
It's not abnormal for people to act falsely polite when put in extremely uncomfortable situations.
Yeah.
It's an old man trying to avoid a confrontation. At least that's what I got out of it.
That's fair. That makes sense. I like that. So, Fred then gets up from the chair that he was sprawled in, smoking a cigarette in this dude's house. And he comes over and he starts kicking at the stuff in his briefcase. And he does that. He does a lot of rifling through Mr. Paddock's stuff in this episode.
No respect for personal property.
It is one of the things that really ticked me off. Like, I can't. And so he was kicking through his stuff, and then he puts the cigarette out on his
fucking
carpet.
drops it on the carpet and snuffs it out with his foot.
Like, dude, complete disrespect. Like, it's...
I mean, if Fred has taught us anything about his character this far into the episode, which, to be fair, we're like 8 minutes into the episode at this point. We are crawling along, but if he's taught us anything, it's that he's an ass.
Yeah.
Like, he's a toddler.
Spoiled child.
Yeah. He's a toddler that wants his new toy.
Mm-hmm.
Because as it turns out, preschool wasn't everything he was promised.
Found a person who can get him the toy, and now he's going to pursue until he can get his toy.
Well, yeah, this old man's got my red rubber ball.
So, Mr. Paddock is sitting on the floor just trying to pick up his stuff. And he remains on the floor for a bit. And Fred comes over and crouches next to him and goes, well, you got a partner now. And the old man looks at him and says, I don't need a partner. I'm content. I have this talent, but I use it sparingly. I must use it sparingly. And then, Fred goes on to sort of berate him and like, you have this capability, but you use it, you squander it essentially on these petty items, on these matches and cleaning fluid and all of these bus tickets.
Got a
like
$1 million talent.
Yeah.
Wasting it on nickels and dimes.
He goes,
Something to that effect.
Yeah. And then they get into this little bit of dialogue about what would satisfy Fred. And he goes, well, what satisfies you? And then Fred goes into this thing about luxury. He goes into the fancy car that he wants and, the vacations that he wants to take. And
the tailored suits.
so
The furs.
So it clicks with Fred at this point. He verbally says, well, you can see beyond. You can see into the future. So what is it? Tell me what I need. Old man reaches into his pocket and hands him a fountain pen. He looks at this pen, he opens it up, and it's a leaky fountain pen. He goes, oh, leaky fountain pen, this is great. What is it? He says, what is this, a gag? That's his thing.
Yeah, that
with
is
everything
his
that this
go-to.
man hands him is, what is this, a gag? And the fountain pen happens to drip on a list of horse races, on an upcoming race that's like for the next day, drips right next to a horse's name. And he looks down and he sees, hey, there you go. And his mood, like somebody flipped a light switch.
Yeah, just 180 in half a second.
Went from being super aggressive to suddenly like, hey, man, you got it. You're all right, old man. You're all right.
We're gonna be friends now.
Yeah. So,
Ay.
and you had pointed something out. You actually rewound it and paused it. That the list
Oh,
of the
yeah,
jockeys.
the jockeys.
So the list of the jockeys, when the newspaper that the fountain pen leaked on comes into frame, the list of jockeys are the production crew's like last names, starting with Serling and then moving on.
So we've got Serling, Clemens, Houghton, who was the producer on it, Denault, who was the assistant director, and then there was who was it? Clemens, Houghton, Denault, and Serling.
Yeah.
Were the four that
Yeah,
were listed
there was one more, but I don't write it down. It's fine, doesn't matter. Got most of them. Got most of the big names, which I thought was cool.
Yeah,
They
it's
kinda
just a clever little
Threw it in there.
chunk of.
So then the next scene that we
Easter
see
egg, I guess.
is that's a good word. Easter egg.
It's not.
I mean, it's what it is, though. So then Fred is sprawled out on his hotel bed, and he has the winnings from that horse race and the horse that he bet on. And it's all sprawled out on the bed, and then a porter comes and hands him the daily newspaper, or several daily newspapers. And the porter's just kind of standing in the doorway, and he can see the money that was left out in the open on the bed. And he's kind of looking at him and goes, hey, you ever heard of giving a guy a tip? He goes, you want a tip? Don't play with matches. And he kicks the door.
Yep, kicks
slams
the door, hits
in his
him,
face.
hits
Terrible.
him with the door. He's just such a shit person,
He's a garbage
and he
human.
plays it well. Kudos to him.
I should rephrase. His character in this episode is a garbage human.
I don't have any reason to dislike Steve Cochran other than the fact that he owned a yacht. But Fred Renard, terrible human being.
Yeah. So he's looking through all these papers. He pulls the pen out, ready to make some bets, and the pen doesn't work.
And it's out of ink.
Fred is livid and cursing the old man, and it passes back to Mr. Pedot, who's on the street again, and again he senses Fred behind him before we see him in frame. He comes up and he's telling him, he goes, hey, your pen didn't work, what's next? He's always asking, what's next? He goes, well, the things that you need, you only need once. He goes, well, I mean, I need you to just keep it coming. Like, I'm not ready to be done here. Like, it's worked out so well for all these other people. Like, you saved my hide. You got me some money. Like, we need to keep this going. This is a good thing we got going here. Good thing for Fred. And
Certainly not a good thing for Pedot.
No.
He does not seem to be enjoying this at all.
And Pedot's, made severe eye contact with him and goes, this must stop now. Like, we're done. This stops now. And he looks at him, and there's this very, I don't know, sort of... I guess the writer did this to make Fred, whose character is a garbage human, seem a little more... give the viewer a more sympathetic reaction to him, because he says, listen, old man, I've gotten the... we get a little bit of backstory on Fred, in that he's got the short end of the stick from the age of 4. Nothing in life has gone his way.
See, did that inspire sympathy in you?
Not sympathy, but I feel like that's what they were angling for. Is like he's being very reactionary to this backstory that we don't know anything about. They're like, this dude's had a hard life, and this is why, like a glimpse from character perspective of why he's acting the way he is.
I don't know. I
have a little evidence to support this point.
I'm not disagreeing. I'm just like we all know people who have the hard life argument,
right.
who constantly are got the short end of the stick, and life's been tough and nothing's ever worked out. I mean, nothing works out for anybody. I'm not going to say that people don't have a hard life, because they do, for certain. Like, I recognize that I have it better than some, and I'm grateful for what I have, and I appreciate that some people have it really rough, especially right now.
Yeah.
But like, we all know somebody.
Yeah.
We know a very specific somebody,
mm-hmm.
and it's always the same. I feel like that argument from him didn't, at least for me, no part of me went, oh, he's had a hard time, that's why he's acting like this.
Yeah.
My entire reaction to that was, this is a dude who's always going to blame somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
This is a dude who is always going to make stupid decisions
and blame it on his hard life.
Blame it on his bad luck.
Mm-hmm.
Blame it on Murphy's Law, or whatever other BS people like to come up with when they can't just accept responsibility for their own actions.
Yeah. Well, and the reason that I read it that way is because when Mr. Pedot looks at him and says, "This must stop now," he looks at him and it's like almost like a very childlike moment where he goes, "But why?"
Oh, it's very childlike.
Like, why are you refusing me this special talent that you have?
Well, and I agree entirely. It was a very childlike moment. He had an almost childlike expression on his face in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And if that had been a 7-year-old,
right,
I would have felt a little bit of sympathy.
Yeah.
The 7-year-old hasn't been around long enough to feel that downtrodden.
It's a 37-year-old man.
This is a damn near 40-year-old man who's not getting what he wants and wants his red rubber ball.
Uh-huh.
Like, fuck this guy.
Sure. And that's where
you want a better life, go get a better job.
Right.
Suit doesn't fit you anyway.
Do something.
Looks like terrible.
Did not like the outfit choices.
Porque no los dos.
Okay. And here,
moving on.
And here, I think, is where we get to the real bread and butter of this episode.
Oh, that's good, because we gotta speed this up. Almost an hour in.
I'm working on it. Also, we have like 20 minutes in the beginning to cut out, so it's fine.
We have like 4 minutes in the beginning.
That's okay. So
we forgot to put in the. It's fine.
Put in the what? Put in the what?
It's fine. The ad spot.
Dang it. Okay.
Which I was avoiding because I didn't want to have to cut that out.
We can fix it. It's okay.
If you're just not gonna let it go,
really,
stare at me.
Really, we get to the bread and butter of the point of this episode, where Mr. Pedot looks at him and says, "The things that you need most, I can't give you. I can't supply." He goes, "Well, what things? Serenity, peace of mind, humor, ability to laugh at oneself. These are all things I can't give you." And then, of course, in a further childlike manner, Fred refuses to listen to any of this and starts rifling through his briefcase again and pulls out a shoebox, to which Mr. Pedot doesn't say anything.
He does, actually.
Right then?
Yeah.
What's he say?
He starts rifling through, watching Pedot's face for a reaction.
Mm-hmm.
When he gets to the shoebox, Pedot says, "No, please don't," which is when he decides the shoebox is what he's there for.
The shoebox is correct. So then he goes to the curb, he puts
well
the shoes
played
on.
by Pedot.
I didn't even catch it. Or my whole attention to detail still. Terrible. We're learning. It's fine. So he goes to the curb, he puts the shoes on, and he stands up and immediately starts criticizing the shoes. They don't fit, they're too tight.
They're too tight. The first words out of his mouth are, "The shoes are too tight." I just want to read through and just slap this 40-year-old man who's dead now.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
yeah. So
like he acted this part so well that I want to reach through time and smack Steve Cochran.
Yeah. The shoes are too tight. Leather soles. He goes, "Leather soles. I hate leather soles. They're slippery."
They're slippery.
And then he stands up, and Mr. Pedot is starting to back away now from him.
Yeah, he's already
put
packed
the
up his
shoes on.
case and is halfway across the street.
He's backing away and goes, "So what do I do now? I know. I just walk around and it's going to lead me to the thing that I need. That's what I do, right? Right, old man?" He's like looking for a further answer. And Pedot looks at him and goes, "Patience. patience is another thing you need that I can't give you. And so the old man gets further across the street. And Pedot's starting to get angry again. Or not Pedot, Fred starting to get angry again. And he walks into the center of the street. And then this
God, them leather soles.
beautiful moment
They'll get you every time.
where we can see he's starting to slip. And then a car, or like, you hear the sound before you see it, right?
I don't know.
The sound
probably.
of a car tires screeching, and he does this freeze frame over dramatic.
God,
Oh no, I'm going to be hit.
Days of Our Lives would have paid him so much money for that moment.
It's fantastic. So he is essentially hit by a car. He slips in the street, gets hit by a car. At least that's the impression that he's given.
I mean, we see him get hit by the car.
Yeah. Well,
It's
they cut very quickly there. Like,
Well, I
we
mean-
see him slip, we see the freeze frame of him. Oh no.
we
And
see
then-
somebody get hit by a car, and if I had to guess, that car while filming was moving at about 2 miles an hour.
Yeah.
And they sped it up enough. The car looked like it was doing 45.
Yeah, yeah.
But then homie falls off the car like somebody has just hit fast forward on the VCR, and it is adorable.
It's fantastic.
I get they couldn't run over Steve Cochran for the shot. I get it. Even in '59, they had liability issues. I understand.
Stunt people.
Holy God, was that bad?
Yeah, it was bad. So then, immediately after he's hit by the car, the camera focuses on Mr. Pedot. And he says that the shoes were just something that happened to be what I needed. Because when I looked in your eyes that night at the diner, I saw death. More importantly, I saw my death.
You were going to kill me.
So slippery shoes, thing that I needed. Yeah, it's great.
It was well done. It's a classic story of greed, and how greed will do you in.
Our time.
And it's well done. I mean, Steve Cochran, Ernest Trudeau, Reed Morgan, even despite his fairly small bit in this, phenomenal actors in this episode. I can't speak for their entire careers because I'm not 1,000. I haven't seen all of them. But in this episode, all three of them, absolutely phenomenal. Great story. Henry Kuttner. I probably mispronounced his name 1,000 times so far today.
That's okay, you only said it 3.
Oh, that I've mispronounced it too. I'm doing all right. Although Meatloaf would still say I was not.
So after this, we're
Luddites.
almost done.
No,
Oh,
Luddites.
the guys, yeah.
No,
So-
you! That beautiful Meatloaf reference. 2 out of 3 ain't bad. Just
I'm sorry. If you've learned anything by now, you've learned that I don't catch many references. I'm working on that.
surrounded. With that said, troglodyte, our favorite word. Love it so far.
Where did it come from?
Do what?
Where did it come from?
I don't fucking birdologist.
Okay. All right.
I just know it's got a good mouthfeel.
So he says the thing about slippery shoes, and it gives us a moment to kind of let that soak in, you know. And then he immediately goes back to hawking his wares. Is the next thing we see the crime scene, the police standing around, and then this couple comes out of their like floor level apartment right down the stairs, and they look right at Mr. Pedot and say, "What happened? Did you see it? Hit and run."
That's what it was.
That's
Hit and
what it
run.
was. He goes, is there anything you need, or is there something I can sell you? He goes, oh man, we don't need anything. It's at night. And he goes, and he looks at the guy of the couple.
Who looks
And-
like he just got out of bed.
Yeah,
He's not in
they
good
both
shape.
like she's in rollers and has a robe on. Like they've clearly something happened and they came out from their bedroom.
Super late because the ambulance is already here. The medics are here. There's a photographer for the local newspaper
Right.
here. Like,
Maybe-
you were across the street. You should have been out here half an hour ago.
They were just watching from the window until things got good. Until they saw
Until
the
the-
news pull up.
Till the camera was ready. And by that I mean the guy behind the camera filming.
Right. So he comes out and he looks at the guy and goes, I know what you need. And he pulls out a comb. Hands him a comb. And the woman looks over at, I assume, a person who is her husband, and says, a comb?
That man was played by Freddy Krueger, by the way.
Really?
The actor's name was Fred Krueger.
That's fun.
He was credited as man on the street. Unimportant, other than it was Freddy Krueger, and that made me smile.
That's cool.
Kept looking for a street sign. Really wanted to find a street sign that said
Elm
Elm
Street.
Street.
I knew that one.
Did know that one. Yeah.
So a comb at this time of night, and so they get into the fray, right? And then a news reporter stops and says, "Hey, do you mind to hold a second?" And she goes, "Oh, we're gonna be taking a picture. You look presentable." And she looks at him with the comb, and he combs his hair. So basically, there are two kinds of people in this episode. Those who are just accepting, like the lady with the cleaning fluid. It's like, oh, that's kind of odd. I'll take it. That's fine. And then those who continually, like Fred, mock the old man. But he's always right, because he always knew what they needed. That's it. That's all I got.
I hope that's all you got. That's the entire episode.
Yep.
We're good.
Done.
I think we nailed it.
I talked so much.
You did. It happens. This is a podcast. If we weren't talking, it would get awkward.
Yeah. Anyway, overall, very much enjoyed this episode.
Great episode. Great episode.
Fantastic. And I will let you do most of the talking next episode.
Well, next episode I have the...
Yeah.
You have production notes.
I do. I might actually get through them next time. What is the next episode?
I don't know. I'm not a Twilight Zone.
We'll figure it out. Anyway,
hold please with silence that I can cut out. The next episode, episode 13 of season 1, is The Four of Us Are Dying, where we follow a man who is essentially a terrible grifter that has the ability to change his face.
Ooh.
Could be interesting, could be terrible. I've seen it, I know the answer to that.
All right, well, join us next week.
Thank you for listening. If you could do us a favor and head over to iTunes, if that's where you're listening to this, and give us a rating and or a comment, it would really help get our rating moved.
Yeah.
Which is super duper important for getting a podcast off the ground. We're asking a little late, realistically. We should have been asking like 6 episodes ago.
It took us a little while to get everything set up. But now it's set up, and you should help us out by commenting.
It's all set up, and we could use some ratings on the iTunes. We could use some comments on iTunes, or you can go over to Anchor.
Yeah.
They have things.
Yeah.
Just go iTunes, please, and thank you. We're gonna do what we can to get these uploaded to YouTube as well, so that
easier to find.
A little easier to find, easier to listen to if you don't have access to Spotify or something of that effect.
And there's always Twitter.
There's Twitter. Where can they reach you?
At WWUcast.
Well, that's where they can reach us. Where can they reach you?
Oh, at me? I'm sorry. I didn't hear that. I am its_Bethany at Twitter. At its_Bethany. I don't know how Twitter works, guys. This is why we were late to the game. It's fine. That's me.
You can follow me.
_Bethany. Yes.
You can follow me at Conordare. That's at KONRDARE. You can follow the podcast at WWUcast. Follow Bethany at its_Bethany, no apostrophe. Thanks for listening.
Yeah, that's important. Thanks for wandering with us. Have a good night. We'll see you next time.
That's my line.